AbaThembu King Buyelekhaya Dalindyebo also qualifies for reduced sentence. And Kelly Maseko is following the story for us. He joins us now in studio. So Sam, how far are we with the presidential pardon for the AbaThembu King?
At this point in time, Shohan, Minister Lamula says that the presidential pardon of Buyelekhaya, the AbaThembu King Dalindyebo, is before the president, and the president is looking towards that presidential pardon, and in the appropriate time will make that announcement. Hence, that all other processes for Buyelekhaya to be released have been put in abeyance before this presidential pardon that is before the president, and it comes with everything being removed from him, criminal record and everything. That's why he would opt to take that particular route as opposed to another route.
Yeah, so but does he qualify for this grace period, some would call, going forward?
Yes, he does. And Minister Lamula says both Khanya Qekeshe, whom we are saying is eligible for this early parole, as announced through this remissions of 16,643 of inmates currently in prison, that he also applies and qualifies for this early remission. Let's just listen to Minister Lamula speaking about King Dalindyebo also being applicable to these remissions that were announced by the president.
King Dalindyebo did make an application for a presidential pardon. That application is still on the table of the president. It has not yet been considered. When the president has considered that application, he will make an announcement about his decision in that regard. So it is still on the table. With regard to whether he will benefit on a remission or not, he will benefit on the remission, and his benefit is 12 months, which means that he's going to cut his sentence by 12 months. So in October, the king was already eligible for parole, to apply for parole and be considered for parole. So the 1 year also give him a benefit. That means that through operational processes between the commissioner, his family and the king himself, a process will be undertaken in terms of when and how he will be released.
All right, so let's talk a bit more about this remission process. Not everyone qualifies, so who doesn't?
Those who don't qualify are people who have been sentenced to prison for serious crimes, particularly those of gender-based violence. I understand that there's been a high scourge of gender-based violence in the country, so the minister is saying that they are not releasing those who are in prison for gender-based violence. I understand there's been particularly a huge outcry in the country. There's been, for instance, the last one to happen was in Limpopo, where President Cyril Ramaphosa went to that particular family where a young girl was stabbed to death in her room at a particular university where she was studying around, and she had outside accommodation. So that was one of the issues that's there. You've had gender-based violence in provinces such as KwaZulu-Natal, where a student lost her life being shot at by her boyfriend in Mangosuthu University of Technology. So Ronald Lamula, the Minister of Justice and Correctional Services, says those don't qualify for these early remissions or early parole. Let's just listen to the minister.
These special remissions of sentences will not be applicable to any sentence offenders, probationers, parolees or day parolees who is serving for any of the sexual offenses, murder and attempted murder, armed robbery, certified as mentally ill and is detained in accordance with the Mental Health Act 2002, sedition, high treason, sabotage and terrorism. Offenders declared as dangerous by the court in terms of Section 286A of the Criminal Procedure Act 51 of 1977, sentenced to life imprisonment. Any escaped absconded offender who evaded the justice system after being released on bail pending appeal and was still at large on the 16th of December 2019. Violations under the Domestic Violence Act 1998, child abuse. As a responsive government, we have deliberately excluded these types of offenses from the special remission process because we understand the sensitivity they are carrying in our society. Offenders who are classified to be of low risk will receive an additional 12 months. Notable offenders for violence crime who have served almost the minimum required time for parole consideration will only be granted 12 months special remission.